I'm Azuah, and this is a song called Trouble. There's a bird singing in my mind because of you, oh yeah. There's a bird singing in my mind because of you, oh yeah. I tried to help, but you just seem to love the danger that you go through. Tell me why you choose to love the poison. Tell me how it leaves you with a burden. There's a burden stinging in my mind because of you, oh yeah. There's a burden singing in my mind because of you, oh yeah. Well, as much as I don't want to care, well, I put myself back at the start of the beginning. This push and pull, back and forth, tug of war, forget it all. I turn it off, set it out. Oh, there's a bird singing and it's in my mind. Well, cause you, oh, hey. There's a bird singing and it's in my mind. Well, cause you, that you don't face me as much as you do, but still, yeah. Do you not see what you can do? The fact that you have the trouble you make, oh, the trouble that you make. There's a burning and a stinging, and it's in my mind, and I don't want to lose you, but I cannot find the relief that I would have without you in my life. No. You in my life. Without you, there'd be no trouble I could find.
Woo! Giving us this opportunity. I think it's pretty cool, and thanks everybody for showing up. Yeah, so I'll start off with one called Heirloom. Alright. My ashtray carries smithereens of nicotine burnt from the lips of a diamond in the roughest withered dream. Graduated from master plans to nigger schemes. Baggies full of them quarter lifers and in-betweens. We grew like weeds, the poison of the prairie, always on the lookout for them boys and boysenberry. We hit the block like a herd or a pack of pachyderms, packing sperm to walking Grateful Dead taxiderm. Thinking our lungs are made of Teflon and breathing black rings out into the echelons, far from pimps. But we played hooky with soon-to-be hookers, hopped the turnstiles on Broadway, went wherever the thrills and the pills took us. Nocturnal creatures hung over on the beaches, sands of time would overlook us. Defeated and monotonous, humbled by the jungle, we were spoiled meat in the metropolis. So that's that one. Thank you. When I was a bit younger, I was lucky enough to be invited to visit my cousin and his father overseas, where he was stationed in the military. And at first I was really homesick, but I ended up meeting some really good friends, and I had experiences that I thought definitely did not belong to a shy kid from Chicago. I didn't feel like I was worthy of those experiences, but one comes to mind. This one is called Hung Summit. I was baptized at least twice in my life. Once between the hands of black preachers, in a pool beneath the unhinged floorboards where my mother sang in the choir of Bethany Baptist Church. Once again between the legs of a white woman at the top of a vineyard in southern Germany on my 21st birthday. Only one of those times had I discovered a sweet mercy in eternity, something gentle in immortality. It wasn't the time I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. It was when with 2 fingers I reached for her nectar, a honeycomb hung from heaven. It was the moment I finally came and gasped for air, running my fingers over the braille of my lover's mosquito-bitten back, vowing to remember how the sun slid off the wings of sparrows beneath us, light chipping away with every thrust. A black automobile rolled into view, its windshield dampened in our musk, its driver leaning out and seeing us, me in my briefs, her wrapped in a picnic blanket. The unwanted answer to my question, can a nigga get a witness? Him telling us that we chose a good time to come up here. At any other time, the workers would be all over. She waved him away and kissed me. Her saliva tasted of salt and salvation. We had shared our bodies like communion wafers. Our nerves were white hot, and all the world was palpable. I clung to her tightly, she as precious as one breath held below water. I laid my head down on her bosom, no longer at a gallop, but trotting with an ease that let me know that she was gloating. I caught sight of a chapel on a distant hill, waxing and waning and waxing again, racing towards me, retreating from me, always and forever. And in a moment of a little bit of indulgence, I was going to read an excerpt of a chapter of a book I was writing years ago. So I was writing about animals in Chicago. That's where I'm from. I don't know why I was writing about that, but I'm going to read some of it if you guys are up for it. Alright. Cool. Alright. Satisfied, the mother owl gathered herself. With a slight flutter of her wings, she settled upon a fallen branch, lying on the floor of a gaping entrance to the caved-in attic. The moonlight shone upon her so as to project a magnificent glitter, a shimmering contour sewn to her pearl-white feathers. Her eyes were black marbles that grew large as if orbs of volatile, oceanic infinite. Looking over her shoulder, she let out a low purring coo, assuaging her children who lay curled up against each other in a crumpled fedora. Then she took a great leap into the ripening night. Up above the pastures and power lines, the great owl's wings stroked in rhythmic silence. Tuning her ears like dials on a transistor radio, she selected frequencies far and local on which to eavesdrop. On Channel 6, she could hear the footprints of a wild hare being made as it wriggled under a fence and scampered through the aisles of an old bus station. On another channel, she could pick up the muffled monologue of a rescue helicopter's overhead propellers, chopping dully in the distance. As the grain silos and steel mills retreated, the suburbs began to roll up ahead in clumps of winding, idle streets and deserted strip malls. The houses, painted, sanded, and furnished differently, looked invariably the same sitting next to each other, like Siamese twins, across from one another, like funhouse mirrors. The roofs were mounted with ornaments that read dish, and there were oil stains under cars that dwarfed the driveways. In the lots of movie theaters and Taco Bells, mobs of teenagers grew restless. In the suburbs, where there are no back streets to mourn the loss of innocence to a palpable sterility. This was a life coddled and tucked away, However, never too far from the steady hum of the expressways, where billboards line the tollway tendrils of the great American city. The skies grew coarse and starless, substituted by the embers of street lamps, golden bulbs strung together in a web of a million shimmering sequins. At the very moment that bridges rose over a paralyzed river, chains of freight from Madison, Jacksonville, and Fresno chugged over tracks stapled into the scorched earth. It was an image of Da Vinci's most convoluted and dazzling rumination, its auxiliary parts churning, pumping, whirring, and hissing, spouting fumes from its blackened chimneys. Towering above the rooftops in the east were the barely visible silhouettes of two monoliths jutting upwards into heavenly obscurity. God bless Chicago. All right, so here's a slightly less indulgent one. I don't think I can put into words how much this presidency, how much this man means to me. I know, he's not perfect. But all of his promises feel kept as soon as he makes them. Some say it's not enough, but I think he must be doing a lot for people of my color. I believe that we can one day live in a post-racial America. I truly believe it when people say they are colorblind and they see everyone as equals. I'm colorblind too. I find that the president is a great motivational speaker as well. Sometimes when I'm feeling really low on energy, at the sound of his voice, I immediately spring into action. That sort of power is invaluable if you ask me. Can I tell you that sometimes I have this dream where I'm on the White House lawn. I sniff the flowers and then put together a bouquet of the ones I really like. Then I crawl commando up to the door and slip past the Secret Service undetected. I set the flowers down at the door of Sasha and Malia's room. Then I make my way to the first couple's bedroom. And then I curl up at the foot of Obama's bed. I have a dream within this dream where I'm gazing up into Barack Obama's eyes as he feeds me from his hand kibble that seems to never run out. As some of you know, I moved out here about 1.5 years ago, and I don't know much about the Bay Area, admittedly, but I picked up some general feelings about it because I clean people's homes in San Francisco and wealthier people's homes, and I live here in Oakland right down the street. So you gotta understand that's my perspective. But this one's called A Crack in the Marina. I would like to sell crack in the marina just as a practical joke. Invite all my friends at the bottom of the hill onto all of your boats. I want to walk barefoot on your pristine streets, singing to you the hymns from our mean streets. Under blackened skies with silver tinsel, we drink and fuss over the raiders. We make golden tortillas for your silver platters. Our distant laughter reminds you of cicadas. The bridge might be the only thing that doesn't lie between us. We see your parties, we celebrate too. You go all night, we go all night too. Though our lives are a tug of war between a last chance and a tar pit. Want another?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Sorry for the people.
Huh?
Sorry for the people.
Oh no, it's okay. It's alright. Alright.
Yes, one more and then we'll hear from Azuah. She's taking a break.
Thanks, you.
Azuah, oh, she's right there.
Alright. I met this woman and on a flight, on my way back here from Chicago. And we just had a really good connection. It's rare that you meet someone in the airport and it's like a genuine, you're like, this person is really cool. So this woman was named Nguyen, and that's what this song is titled, so this is actually a song. It goes, sometimes I don't believe in eloquence. I don't believe that I could tell you what I ever meant. I hope to see you somewhere else below the heavens, and I want to take you by the hand and show you everything I can. But if I can't, just allow me to say, I dreamt of your smile on my way back to the bay. I kept it up a mile high and tried to hold it in place. I guess everything gets heavy in time. Look, I just want you to remember me. Name, number, energy, until you see me again. I just want you to remember me. Not just my name, but my energy, until we meet again. I guess it's all right to think of what can never be. You can always be you. I can always be me. In the end, I thank God for this supreme connection. The song is a firefly that lights your way through the night.
Yes, thank you for having us, Nomadic Press. It's so exciting to have a destination right in the neighborhood and have all our neighbors here. So I'll just start by reading some from Wet Reckless, and then I'll read some other stuff later. But Wet Reckless is divided into roughly places that I've lived, not exactly chronological, but that's the way we broke the sections up, and so this poem sort of explains that. And I'm never used to reading glasses because that's a new thing that I do.
Me too.
Trying to get used to it. I come from Mud Pond, murky under its tangle of lily pads, dirty kitchen of smoke from wood stove and weed. I come from Fillmore, how it was before high-rises, flat land stretched behind chain link, raised tenements, old men with watermelon trucks, and the 22 right on through. I come from Richmond by the tracks, concrete and steel, our little piece of peace wedged into its iron point. I come from Oakland, where roosters and crows talk from the back of the house to gunshots and stereos in the front, where I'm afraid to turn on the local bad news but grow succulent roots in clay soil and find home. The first section is my very country, very hippie childhood. Fringe elements. I was born to a second-generation atheist mother. My father is much in love with every spiritual belief system, mysticism, and religion as an agnostic Tibetan Buddhist can be. There were no rules to be broken, but Dad did like the universe to revolve around his chair and his storytelling. Mom practiced some sort of spacey, hippie practicality. Women were empowered by hard work, workhorse, housework, gardening, baking, canning, drying, freezing. The men took their sweet time, told their stories, smoked 10 joints, rolled endless tobacco, emptied six-packs, and eventually got around to fixing the cars. More disassembling than assembling. Tilling the soil to plant Mom's seeds, they chiseled beams, built barns and woodsheds. Come fall, we butchered pigs. The men gathered round, stamping cold feet, blowing clouds of breath, pickup trucks in a circle, the dead pig chained to a tree, a bullet between the eyes, a knife to the throat. Upside down, her pink body unzipped, her guts removed and laid out on newspaper. The women handled that stuff, filled pots with stinking innards, and us kids, we weren't horrified. We loved those pigs, but we knew the salty slices of bacon that would drape our plates, the sausage, ham, the pork chops, with sage and thyme from Mom's garden. We were pig meat, too. We knew our meat was sweet, prepubescent. We understood fine lines and that sometimes they got crossed. We were used to slaughter and the onslaught of men's eyes, hands. We ran naked and barefoot with fat peaches under swelled bellies. We took baths only when forced, left the tub ringed with garden dirt and duck pond mud. We ate peanut butter with the oil on top, nuts poured into a grinder at the co-op. Our food required a lot of chewing, a lot of cooking. Mom was a pressure cooker that exploded now and then. My memories of that time are small and dark as the dingy house, a white clapboard, the wood floor so rotten there were pieces of plywood to cover the soft spots. You had to know how to maneuver, and I did. I maneuvered myself into my favorite chair, the seat of it caved caning replaced by white clothesline wound around the frame. The living room was full of junk except a wall of records, a world of music I lived in, rock and roll, folk, and bluegrass. And Mom's sewing table where she spread fabric, patterns, and the leather she would paint designs on and cut into fringe. Thousands of rustling leather strips, decorating every hippie's giggling body, the creepy reach of acids burning come down. She made dolls for me there, heads of hair made from long strips of leather. Their bodies, like the ones I lived with, had big bushes and bare breasts. In the pit of the garage, a cold cement hole smelled of motor oil. Newts got trapped there sometimes, bright orange slivers, delicate dots decorating their backs, 3 fingers fine as purple thistle and dirty blonde hair. After feeling their tiny feet run across mine, an apricot whisper, fast then slow, I'd set them free, tangerine tail waving goodbye. One day I'll wiggle into the woods, disappear under a bed of pine, rot into soil dark with life. And this one is Busy Town. I remember what dead hands feel like, and they're not worth holding. I remember when I asked you to smash my Fisher-Price push popper so I could get the gumballs out. Even though I knew they weren't really gumballs, you smashed it with your sledgehammer. I'd like to steal your Smith Brothers cough drops, black licorice, and Luden's lemon from the glove box. How your jaw clicked when you bit into an almond joy or a pecan pie from the village store. How we didn't tell Mom about the sweets. I remember when Franny Bear came home leaking red pools, you examining her furry body and exclaiming a bullet had gone clean through. All those other dogs you straddled on the kitchen floor pulled quills from whining snouts with needle-nose pliers. The stories you read, Wind in the Willows, Frog and Toad, and Richard Scarry. Personified animals hold you the most. You like to get stoned and watch people in their little cars and trucks buzz around New England towns. Imagine them as Richard Scarry characters, Lowly Worm in his apple car, the Beagle policeman. You'd laugh with such abandon. I remember. That was my dad. He loved those stories. And then I'll jump into San Francisco a little bit. Nothing to hold you down on Market Street. Between bus stops, you realize you don't have a home. Some days you walk the sparkly sidewalks blind with sadness, as useless as all the other trash blowing along in the violent Pacific air. Outdoor fuchsia trees and aloe lose their magic, just overgrown houseplants that have gone astray, like you. The fog is not romantic. It enters your bones cold, ends the lie that is California. This is the city you needed, you jonesed for, and there's no home to go back to, no quaint New England bed of spindle and patchwork. This is it. But nothing holds you here. The mates you pick bob around the ring. You try to beat them into needing you. You punch them in the nose with your little girl fist. You kick and feed them your icky bits. You want to force them to hold you safe as mother arms in the night. Again and again you wake alone, every day a hangover, even when you're too bored to drink, too tired to 12-step. Some people have things they went to school for, things that pay them or require them. Children, careers, foreign words. You only wanted love, you'll only kill it when it's given. Feels like putting on someone else's clothes, you can't fit into it, or too malnourished to swallow it. Need something stronger to keep you from falling off, right off this quaky edge of continent. All you can do is walk and walk like the muni bus pass your broke ass by. So I think I have to throw a Valentine's poem or two in. So, to the courier of love, a bike messenger on Valentine's Day. Today I want to ride on your handlebars, climb into your messenger bag, hug your skull like your beanie hat. Wish you'd whisper into me, the radio clipped close to your mouth above your scarred collarbone. After work I'll slide into you with the beers and the whiskey hot in your gut. Yesterday I turned away your eager cold air kiss, hated the flush of your cheeks reddened at the bar, neglected your legs and your arms, tired from peddling hills and alleys, pushing your bike on and off the train, up and down the stairs, chain ticking as you coast the streets home. I can't promise I'll be better despite my wanting to. I'm here, uncombed, in my old bathrobe and fuzzy slippers, looking like a crazy housewife, and I am crazy, but I can't be your wife. Because I can't love you back. I blame unpaid bills, the quickness of your sex, and the stubborn black stealing up of your eyes. But I'm afraid you know I only love you when you ride away. One more for the back messenger. Killing love on February 14th. The Blade Runner killed his girlfriend today. He runs on 2 thin hooks, lean, muscular, half metal, half man. A beautiful new kind of animal. Today the police cover up burning one of their own. He was on a murderous rampage, American Hero style. We all know a blaze of glory is the only way to go. And so you break up with me on Valentine's Day. For effect, I smash the cake I made you, shatter pieces of chocolate and cheap white china. That's my small blaze. We text the only words between us, use a series of door slams as periods. Clearly, this is my fault. You tell me not to be so nice so you can move on. I don't know how to not be nice without maintaining anger, so I throw things and say fuck a lot. I'm predatory, only willing to fight after a break. You tell me I hold all the cards. I tell you I don't want the cards. Why can't we just be? Can't you sit still next to me, hold my hand, let me feel this, grow up through my ribs, a green snaking stalk unfolding inside me? You fail to realize that I live with the surety that I will disappoint. I don't know how to hit a ball with a paddle or how to drink in bars. I'm scared to ride a bicycle and sometimes even to leave my own house. I wanted to learn to be human for you. I throw the cards back. You let them fall softly on the floor. That was the best Valentine's. Without a roof. This love between us grew up from under the desk of a speed freak. It tapes LED lights with black electrical tape, cooks iguana over open fire, tastes sweet like suckling pig. Sparked by a kiss in Foods Co. parking lot, we rode on jetliners, landed in the same city, moved in a closed curve, points on the same plane. I kept your stories in a red bandana, carried them over my shoulder, coast to coast, all these years. A love born of heartbreak, me tired from the weight of belongings thrown out the door, exhausted of being a good girl to men who could only see me in the rearview mirror. And you sat on a curb leaking, the tears wouldn't stop, so you walked away from your job and everything you owned, smoke circled a glass pipe, blood in a syringe. I spent my inheritance, did a great job playing house, had boyfriends who smoked weed in bed all weekend long, shades drawn, boyfriends who strung me along. I fought with drunks till dawn. Relationships left me looking for morning, barefoot and alone in my kitchen. But now you're here, and we are the pot-bellied versions of our young selves. Only we know these wrinkles are illusion. I do recall my hands full of your hair. You can still see me, black-rimmed eyes, flight jacket, 32-waist size. Only we know these love handles, this baldness, is transient too, and should be worn like a badge. My white flight. On his way to the store, a white van stops beside my boyfriend. The back door opens, an automatic weapon pointed. He raises his arms, looks to the sky. A voice from the front seat says, "It's not him." He opens his eyes. The van is gone. My wings are itching now, and I think how I used to love sinking into the sprawled badness of this town. It's such a mess I can slide through unnoticed among the other misfits and outlaws. But lately, the news in Oakland makes me cry. 3-year-olds are shot off their tricycles, run over crossing the street. A man is murdered while feeding the homeless with his daughter. A man is murdered at the ATM in front of his son. Writers like me in coffee shops, robbed of laptops, shot for resisting. And I think I'd stay if the ghetto was only on the outside of my spiked metal gate. But the problem is, it's on the inside, too. And it's not the good kind of ghetto, the soul full of music, bubbling pots of greens on a back burner, corner philosophers, foiled plates from taco trucks and barbecues. It's the bitter, hater kind, the selfish, piss on your doorstep, throw your trash on the ground kind, the drink the last drop of Kool-Aid and leave an empty pitcher taunting the rest of us kind. Woo! Not anymore, though. Not inside. There's still hot chips all over the front of the house. The Raptor on East 14th. There's a tower in East Oakland down by Seminary on the host roll. That's where he lives. I've never seen him, but I heard from the air conditioning guy he hunts this wasted tundra of coke smokers, winos, baby girls on colt legs wobbling by on stilettos, thick-ass mini-skirted vets holding up street corners. Like the girls, the great white owl uses the sit-and-wait style of hunting. His penthouse home is high in the brick tower above the low-standing blighted buildings of the flatlands, above the taco trucks and ice cream carts of the Sureños. He's built a queen-size nest surrounded by shit pellets and pigeon carcasses like fried chicken bones outside the Fish King a few blocks up. I want to stalk this bird of prey, catch him in action. Taloned king of the ghetto, he rules among scavengers. No one is scraping up much more than a welfare check or a stolen flat screen. So keeping with the bird theme, the rooster on 2-6. Recently on my return from work, a rangy group of kids was running the neighborhood looking for their lost rooster. Later I heard an upset of wings and dog snarls from behind the house. I knew my pit bulls had a hold of him. From the look of their feathered mouths, I thought for sure he was a goner. I called in the dogs, leaving a trail of feathers and muffled squawks. But I'll be damned if 24 hours later, after the third time we called the dogs off, he limp-walked right out our front gate and disappeared into someone else's yard. Now, every morning in the early hours, I hear crowing and I feel proud. Think of the Chinatown gold medallion I used to wear on my neck, Year of the Rooster. And I'm glad to be one, because that was some badass cop walking away from a dog fight. So one more for the hood. And, we'll hear some music. The language of rice farmers. Sitting in the backyard thinking about earthquakes, Katrina, and zombie apocalypse, I plan to retrofit and reinforce. Someday I'll start my urban farm, get some solar panels, but I'm distracted by a bird that thinks it's a DJ mixing and scratching the same tune for hours. Another sounds a lot like my car alarm. I hear the cocks crow, his hens clucking, a skill saw squeals of new things built. The rattling trunk of a bass-filled scraper competing with the mariachi's oompa loompa sound. An argument turns to the sharp pap-pap of gunfire. On our street, there are pigeons and chickens eating top ramen together, dodging the latest rotation of thrown-away chihuahua mutts zippering in and out of double-parked cars and speed bumps. The Chinese lady picking through our trash wears a polyester suit and a sombrero. My neighbors carry a bloody quartered pig. They look guilty as if it's a human corpse. I smile back because I love them. A chain-smoking gang of young Nepali men bounce and giggle around the front porch night and day. The women come and go, squat on their haunches, brushing long hair and clutching cell phones. They wait for shared rides to work while the men play. Spicy smells come from the backyard where rows of marigold bushes bejewel the bottling recycling operation that makes a clinking music long past dark. Once a month someone borrows a truck and the whole thing is overflowing with dog food bags full of bottles and cans. Listen to me and the dogs growl, happily wiggle bare feet in the half-dead East Oakland grass.
Alright, this song is called Jenn Vee. I can see that I have you wrapped around my finger, and there's nothing you can do. Forget the world, it's just the two of us. And you know there's no one else that you can trust. I know exactly how you move. It's so wonderful to know how to control. I have you under my spell. There is no one that you can tell. The more you fight, the more you're mine. You're mine. Not in nerves, 'cause it will all be fine. Just lose control of all your might. Well, I am the devil's breath, and only regret and stress is the benefit. If you ever leave me, well, I have you under my spell. There is no one that you can tell. The more you fight, the more you're mine. You're mine. I have you under my spell. There is no one that you can tell. The more you fight, the more you're mine. more you're mine, the more you find, the more you're mine, you're mine.
Thanks for bringing me back again after the intermission.
We had to vote.
Yeah.
Close.
I felt that energy.
That room, that Sandman player.
Yeah, right. Apollo. Alright. So, I mentioned before, I moved here from Chicago. So, I had some thoughts just before I had moved from Chicago about leaving. So I'll read you that. Chicago, you meatpacking, beer swilling old cuss of a town. You are the apple of my eye. I must admit to a hint of ecstasy in how badly you've treated me. There is more where that hint came from. A place where I can gorge on gorgeous hints until I get the picture. I promise I'll tell them all about you. Truth is, I like my grass brown just the way it is. And before long, I will long for you to bruise me up in that delightful way that only you can. When the time comes, I'll come running back to you. When I was really young, on a rare occasion, I got to visit my dad and my half-brothers and sisters. And so I guess this is some of the things that ran through my mind when I got to see them. This one's called 14 Flights Down. 14 flights down, in the bowels of Moore Street slums, a north side flavored hell, packed with elevator bums. Men who will never work a day in their damn lives. No matter how many buttons you push, they cease to budge, to elevate. So I hit the stairs, crooked, dilapidated, drenched in liquor, lady hollering, nigga this, nigga that, motherfucker you ain't shit. I don't need your ass no way, fuck you. Man, she was tripping. How do I keep from slipping down these lopsided stairs? Not guided, only eyed with cold black stares. Do you see the trouble I go through, just to see my half-brother and sister? Not to mention my play-brother too. Nah, I didn't come to see my father. I never did care for magic tricks, but now you see him, now you don't shit. So as he stood there in the doorway smiling, I had a good mind to tell him off. But you see, my heart could conjure up, but my mouth couldn't strut. So I hugged him. And as I entered the room, I wondered, as I had always done, when regarding the smorgasbord of piled up clothes, dried up Fruit Loops, and gum-stuck carpeting, how could anyone call this home? The thought lingered like a fly on the wall, watching the main event. I hugged them half back. They hugged half back, with the "you're only half" sentiment. But as time wore on, those sentiments would fade, and before long it was time to shower. And I would have to ask, how does a child keep from being dirty in a tub full of roaches? Unable to sleep day in, we were kids unattended, indulged in Jack's, Nintendo, and spades. Jumping on soiled mattresses, we danced and played charades. We flew rocket ships to the moon and back. Sunset falls, we focused on cracks in the walls. Tupac's voice resonates in the halls, saying there's no way that I could pay you back. But my plan is to show you that I understand. But what I didn't understand was their dear mama and her transformation. She slept through the daytime racket, cocooned in a collage of blanket and sheet, and emerged in afternoon with a charming liveliness, eager to be the banker as I passed go a zillion times. For that, I adored her. Then she'd disappear for hours, to return as a pale, sickly figure in the corner by the window, puffing her newest Newport. My father told me she was at work, but I don't think she enjoyed her job. Half of me felt sorry for her. The other half did too. Taking special notice to the way she distanced herself from my father. The kids fussed and argued, bite marks over a duck hunt gun. The planet continued to spin, never halting to witness her pain. But in time the world would take on her solemn tone, slip into a slumber of wretched discomfort in a gloomy metropolis. 14 flights below, a cacophony of non-citizens living under the radar, scrambling in pursuit of wealth, an elusive American dream, stashing QPs in the speakers of Lincoln, Chevys, Cutlasses, riding like phantoms beneath the streetlights, appear, disappear, between buildings, alleys wet with crimson, this jungle of primitive cannibal prison. Crammed in a mobile slave ship like tenements, the residents in mine are desolate. It is evident that resistance, this shit is futile. And all at once I grew weary of being a kid and not knowing the way out, or just not knowing the way at all. And every time this happened, I'd extend my vision to the downtown skyline, hovering rooftops and city lights, fascinating, exuberant balls of flame, massive juggernauts of gas, untamed. These stars do well to illuminate my eyes, ode to promenade among them, and seek the 14th floor's demise. Me and Cassandra Dallett, we live pretty close together, a few blocks away from each other. So I wrote this just fucking around on a walk home from her place. So during the walk across from the 4 blocks that separate Cassandra Dallett's home and my own, I realized that I no longer duck when I hear gunshots. What's the fucking point? It's frequent enough that by now I could probably tell whether the shooter held his piece sideways. At this point it just reminds me that it's time to clean my cat's litter box, or that I have approximately 18 shots before rent is due. I'll be releasing a rap album pretty soon. I just put my microphone by the bedroom window and pointed towards Ed's Food and Liquor on 23rd and East 27th, and that's the album. I got nothing to do with it. Fruitvale Avenue is my ghostwriter. Alright, so I'm going to read something rather long, if you'll bear with me. This one is called, in French, I can't get the pronunciation right, but it's like Cœur Lucille, means have courage, or heart. And so I'll read this. I had a teacher back when I was like 16, asked me to write an extra chapter to the Grapes of Wrath, just to fuck with me, I guess. So if you didn't like Grapes of Wrath, I feel sorry for you. There it is, my hero, out in the cornfields. I sat on the wooden porch watching it. I watched it because I adored it. Its incredible brawn hunched over the earth and grew up into the atmospheres. With amazing strength and unmatched wit, it crushed German warplanes with its bare hands. My daddy was a fighter pilot in World War I. He stood tall in the fields, emanating rays of honor and grace. He stood in the fields when the day turned red, and shadows advanced upon the corn stalks. He stood in the fields until the silver moon rose, sovereign over the humble night. He parted with himself under the stars, and came inside to be with his family. By this time I was washing the dishes, and Father told me I had to take care of the household now. My mother got sick a few weeks back, and it's getting worse with every day. We don't think she's gonna make it. The way she gets in the late hours, it's a miracle she doesn't pass on right under her eyelids. I wash and rinse, not knowing how things are gonna be around here. Thank God I don't have to wash much. Ma can't really eat because of her sickness. Seems like her sickness is just eating her right through. And Pa never eats. I mean, I've never seen him eat. It's like the man gets his energy working in those fields. Night after night he comes in, walks into the living room, goes to the desk, and pulls out a book and a fresh cigar. I retire to my room adjacent to Ma's room. I opened the window almost halfway and let the breeze breathe in. As the white drapes blow and the night stars pour in, I turned the dials on my radio. I stood in front of my window with my hands placed on the chipped windowsill. I was a girl, and yet still I fancied being strong in this world of mine. The hours pile on, one on top of the other, and the house gets lonely. Pa sits in his favorite chair, cigar in mouth and reading. Pa never sleeps either. I lay on my bed beside the radio and began to doze off to the sounds of Bessie Smith. Ma began her battle with things in the way they were. The slow, hoarse moans could be heard from within the walls next to mine. I turned off my radio and crawled under the sheets. Soon the shrieking and howling would come, and I had to get some sleep before morning came again. Somehow I managed to slip into the embrace of sleep, forgetting about Father. How the hell did Pa deal with all that hollering? He never slept. Was he scared? He had to hear it. Or was he too involved in his own world of worries and turmoil to notice the illness murdering his wife every time he sat down to read a chapter? I decided to leave these thoughts to daytime. Tomorrow was a new day full of new worries and new turmoil. The hero was the only object rooted into the course of time, hit with every wave and kissed with every moment. Then the storm came. I woke up one morning and put on my brother's jeans. My brother Thomas, he was older than me. Pa and him had a kind of bond. But Thomas is gone now, though, so Pa's got me. Thomas went out last September to go look for work. We haven't gotten any letters from him yet, and Pa's still waiting, though. So with these jeans, too spacious for my skinny limbs to fill, I walked out onto the porch and saw Pa standing on the foot of the stairs with a rake. He was looking off into the distance, somewhere off. Whatever it was, I sure as hell didn't see it. Then there were the sounds of the winds. Thunderous hissing came from every direction. Then came the dust. The thick, ominous shadow slowly creeped over the powdery blue sky and steadily approached our farm. I watched my father, and as I watched I saw the knuckles wrap around the rake turn from blush to white. The shadow fell over us, and the thin sands whipped my hair into my face. "Go check on Ma, Lucille," yelled Pa. I ran into the house, and right then I wondered if our neighbors had seen the dust. If they did, were all of their fathers still standing out there staring into it? I wonder what my daddy thought he was going to find out there, and then I laughed. Pa came in walking through the front door, and then he picked up the phone. I suppose he was aiming to call the neighbors. "How's Ma?" he asked. "Ma's fast asleep. I just don't get it, of all times." I dug a few potatoes out of the pantry, walked over to the sink to wash them. Through the window above the sink, the sky was churning. Wide-eyed, I stood potato in hand as the shadow slowly twisted and twirled from red to brown, then from brown to black. I turned over my shoulder and saw Pa was watching too. Beads of sweat dripped down the creases in his forehead. I turned and continued preparing dinner as the man in the background mouthed words into the phone. After a few hours, it seemed as though we had both decided that this giant cloud of dust invading our town shouldn't interfere with our daily routines, and that normalcy was the best way to turn the skies blue again. Maybe it would just pass on. Pa was reading again. I lay on my bed in deep afternoon, listening to the voice on the radio announce the event at hand. I sat up and got to thinking, what if this thing just doesn't pass on? What's going to happen to us? I wondered if my brother heard any news about it yet. The next few weeks went by slowly. Our daily routines were so ingrained in our minds and bodies that it was enough for me to decide I was going crazy. Then we started doing some unusual things. Me and Pa spent days sweeping and cleaning up clods of dust off the porch and our windowsills. It got hard to breathe. The air was thick, and at nights I didn't let the window open anymore. All the windows shut and the doors locked. The town was suffocating. Over this and the next month, Pa watched the gradual destruction and decay of his crops. One night I watched him walk out into the wind through the field. I got on my slippers and followed him. He stopped walking and settled beside our oak tree, which was now showing signs of illness. I hid amongst the corn stalks and watched him fall to his knees. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he ran his fingers through his hair and stared up into the dust. I can't explain why, but I ran. I ran through the stalks screaming. I knew he saw me, and that made it worse. I was his only daughter. I was supposed to be strong. I ran into the house and fell onto my bed. I cried into my pillow. The shrieking and howling began in the next room. Ma was sick, but somehow I felt more sorry for myself. Pa didn't come back that night. The next morning I went to see how Ma was holding up. Ma was dead. She wasn't breathing anymore and her lips had lost their rosy vibrancy. I wasn't scared. I knew it had to happen. I kissed her forehead and cried the tears of guilt. I was relieved. I pulled out a dress out of my drawer. I put on my slippers and ran out into the fields to find my father. I stopped when I got to the dying oak tree. I expected to see my pa hanging by the neck under the tree with a ladder on the ground, but he wasn't there. The winds began to pick up. I kissed the tree. My hero, gone. I stayed the next 2 days in the soiled crooks of the house. I opened all the windows at night and listened to the winds howl. I let the day turn into night as the dust came in, burning and tearing at my lungs. Ma was beginning to smell. I didn't care. I was so tired. How could he leave his ladies here alone? I didn't know what to think. The incredible strength and unmatched wits suddenly diminished and withered in my mind. There was no more routine, no more normality. The one thing that was sure and constant had gone, and now uncertainty had come. I have to face the mystery of me. And as the tides of red dust rushed into the house, I began to pick myself up. I stood on the front porch before the fields of red corn. The sun poked holes through the looming shadow. And now I knew what to do. I had to leave this place, this scorched earth, the fruitless gourds, those sunken-in cows, this ghost town, this ailing country. The ground was overflowing, too many bodies. Those malnourished hopes were food for fear of blooming death. This somber finale of flowering fatality. This disease would retire us all. Well, that just wouldn't do. No, not for me. Those sentiments became the strings that carried me back through the doorway. There was something I had nearly forgotten. I would find the bookcase in the corner of the living room, coughing as I shuffled and clawed and stopped upon my family heirloom. The Holy Bible. The words hollowed out to make room for a nickel snub-nosed 357. It was the only thing Pa left me, and I would need it where I was going. As I left, I blew a kiss back for the house and Ma. I stood waiting on the side of this dirt Oklahoma highway. I suppose one day I'll tell my grandchildren about how I survived the Great Depression. I really hope by then I'll have better stories to tell. An old pickup rolled out of the dust, and the rumbling motor began to steady as it slowed before me. I don't believe in fairy tales. I ain't got no sparkling ruby heels to click together. All I got is my pretty red dress and this Bible at my hip. If anybody asked me, my daddy was a preacher.
Alright, can you hear me in the back?
Yep, I can hear.
This one, it's an old one. It's called Every Other Week. There were 27 wreaths at Terray's funeral. He was gunned down outside his daughter's basketball game. A week after that funeral, I pick my man up from work. When I pull up, he sits on the curb, defeated, smoking. Sliding in, he sighs, "I'm tired of being black. I had the day of a black man." I mumbled, "Child support and dead homies? Yeah, that's a brother's life." But I feel lucky reaching for him, so damn happy he's in my car, his gorgeous flesh safe. The dead homie got shot in the ass on his way to visit his newborn child. He bled out. Just the other day I said to my girlfriend, I'm going back to being white. White people don't go to funerals every other week. Every murder on the news isn't someone they know, the cousin, husband, child of someone we know. Like TK, who had a full ride, would have left for college in the morning. Plane tickets sat on the dresser, bullets pierced the car, his chest, his family. Or my neighbor, Darius, proud at 18 he could write his name. He was a grown-ass man, and even though he was disabled, his mother couldn't keep him in the house anymore. On a trip to the corner store, he bought a dime bag before 2 unidentified men shot down and murdered Mama's baby boy. And this is why I care. About those numbers, those young men, those jailed and homicidal on the news. I went to school with these brothers, their parents, when we were young, thin, and cocky, when we were untouchable, invincible, when we rocked curls and fades, kangos, and shell toes. These boys were my heroes, my gods. So much beauty and bravado. The sisters, too, don't get me wrong. We wore tall leather hats and boots to match, troop jackets and Guess jeans tight. These brothers held so much magic, sparkling eyes, and hunger. We had KRS-One and Chuck D to guide us into adulthood, into blackness. We rode in a pink Cadillac to the east, blackwards. Vain and glorious we were. We were there the very first time we saw crack rock, when it was new, when it was cool to smoke a Grimmy, sweeten your weed, your Newport. It was cool, but just for a minute before the zombies started their slow, speedy crawl, scratching skin and hair off, searching the ground, climbing slim shimmy through metal bars for more, always more. And it was fly to be a D-boy, because you could go from broke to hood star and 0 to 60, new fits, jewelry, pussy, and status. And these kids are the aftermath of so many of us consumed. Those of us that made it out are war-weary witness to the destruction, the plague. When you rode the back of the bus, sat in the back of the classroom up at Alamo or Gal, listened to cap sessions from luscious lips, the rawness, the hilarity, we can live forever in those moments, boombox echoing through the basement floor at the schoolhouse and the projects. And I have to love these kids, their sideshows, dreadlocks, all their hyped up hatred and limping gun walk, because I still recognize those godlike boys from school days. And I pray for their survival, every single strike against them, squeezed out of the city, back to the wall in the deep east, this town so full of guns and dope, cops scared and ready to kill kids with nothing to lose. Last visit. It was a jailhouse visit, he says, one of many. He'd been from county to the pen, Rita to Quentin, with no plans for change. On this day, the mother of his 3 kids brought his daughter. She was little still, cherubic and pink, a cocoa cutie, eyes giant brown, a wide, melting smile. Though he'd been running the streets and paying the price all her life, and before it, she was Daddy's girl. The visit was through glass, a greasy telephone on either side. The girl's mom held her, put the receiver into her hand. She told Daddy she loved him in small, smiling words. When she was done, her mom took the phone back. His daughter stood on her own, examining the wall separating her from her father's lap. She couldn't get around it, her fingers pried into hard corners. She could not touch, get close enough for him to swing her little body up into his muscular embrace, to feel his kisses cover her face. Frowning, she started to pull at the steel counter, to bang on the shatterproof glass. When it did not give, she began to scream with her whole voice box. She screamed and screamed, "I want my daddy, give me my daddy, let my daddy out." And no one could calm her or get him out of the box. That one always gets me, sorry. Okay, so Rohan and I are neighbors, and we had this idea of writing about San Francisco from the perspective of somebody just moving here and somebody who long ago moved out but watched the city change a lot. So we never did do our piece together that we talked about, but thinking about it, I wrote a couple of things. So the first one is called Dear San Francisco. Fuck you. Look, this breakup is hard for me too. I'd like to remember the good times before you were a white bread racist elite bastard, before you treated your poor like trash, pushing them into dark shit crusted corners, sweeping us across the bridge, underground, out of sight. San Francisco, sorry, we're not techie enough to pay $3,000 a month to sleep in a closet. We're not Uber lifted getting picked up on a Google bus. We can't pay $15 for a plate of gluten-free salad. Dear San Francisco, I remember your railroad flats flooded with sun, artists, writers, painters, musicians, how we made furniture from a few crates and a board we lugged home with a late-night transfer. We didn't shop at Pottery Barn. We didn't even have stores like that. We picked our produce up from the Grey Panther's garage, bought falafel and beans with food stamps at the cheese store, shared 40s on hate, a burrito at Chabella's fed 3 of us. Nights under Dota's nipples, blinking Broadway lights, we were part of the mishmash. Punks and headbangers, sailors and lowriders, the Palladium releasing Michael Jackson red leather zipper jackets and California Curl next door to the Lusty Lady, a first job for many. By the 15-3rd, stealing Bukowski from City Lights. My first job at the Savoy Tivoli, late-night pizza slices for $1 and some hot noodle soup next afternoon with Vietnamese coffee dripping sweet into condensed milk. San Francisco, you were my first love. I came at 13, knew I'd found home, came back every time I tried to leave you. San Francisco, I hate you, but who cares anyway? I can't even afford the toll to get into your punk ass anyway. And no one lives here anyway but a bunch of assholes like you. You gotta hear Missy's San Francisco poems. Yes. Anyhow, this one is Vitiligo City for We talk about the casting of a white crew in a movie about Egypt. We talk about the withdrawing, the downcast eyes, the avoidance of white folks in San Francisco when a young black man pulls his bag of cleaning supplies to work every day. A city embarrassingly called diverse when it is anything but. So whitewashed, so priced out are we. And I tell him, yes, I saw it coming, I saw it happen. And as if dreaming, couldn't get the sound out of my mouth. Whole blocks of black families had left the city in my lifetime, and I'm reliving it now across the bridge. I'm trying to scream now, but my mouth is full of property values and fear. Though honestly, these young moneymakers make me love my ghetto home, relish in its lawlessness and lack of street sweeping. We talk about music and movies, all of us voting new D'Angelo on music and Korean flicks on movies. The young brother calls himself folksy in his musical taste, and I preach the gospel of old school hip-hop and necessary homework of learning your sampled songs. Over empty bottles of wine, over the whitening cast of the music where Igloo, Australia, and Macklemore are the kings and queens like in Hollywood's Egypt. How far backwards we are these days, how light bright this town will become. This grungy old mother to panthers and struggle, losing its color like it has some kind of skin disease. So I tried to write some Valentine's stuff this year. It's all fucking heartbreaking and horrible, but here's one. Sorrow is my weight loss plan. I'm swinging a hammer at his windshield. He's trying to run me over. I'm in my underwear in a blizzard. His car hits the pole. Tires spin out in the snow. I'm screaming at him to remember this. Remember me next time you cheat on your wife. Like I'm a victim or a victor. Though I'm nothing, as quick to melt as flakes on bare skin. It's the last I see of him, a man I thought I loved. The lovely starving I did after. The liquid diet, tears and beer, chewing on my organs, teeth first, a grinding ball of hated flesh and lonely bones. No part of me could see past him with his skinny wife on the phone, telling me she's his wife, she'll forgive him, they have a child. I held her daughter once, pretending I'd give her a sibling. I will ever smell the milk spill in his back seat from when she wrecked it, the day he wasn't at the hospital door to pick me up. The crushing cold snowbanks outside the heated automatic door. No phone in my apartment, how I lost everything and dreamt of redemption through love. Love for someone too drunk to own it or return it, who would forget me quickly, settle back in his dysfunction junction. I had no business losing my cute, quiet, drunk boyfriend for this, turning him into a domestic violence case at 19, making him homeless because he couldn't love me or just see that he did. All I wanted was proof. And all my black-eyed head-banging, all my hammer-slinging, knife-throwing, I was looking for proof. Maybe that I was real, not so fake and empty, not another snowflake melting in spring. I was 25, but not sure I'd been birthed, still unformed and fetal, trying to swim back upstream. God, it's ugly out here looking for love and so, so cold. I don't do winter very well. Okay. First date. I got his number at the tire shop. My homegirl had hit the curb hella hard and fucked up her rim. I got the white boy's number who worked there too, but the brother called right away. I left my baby at homegirl's house. He picked me up. We drank in his truck, tilting paper cups and telling war stories down by Van Ness. After sandwiches at Tommy's joint, we went to the new theater, sprawled the front row seats through Rohan. Later on, we made a run to the avenues and dropped a sack at a cheap motel cutting back through the Presidio. The truck filled with blue light. We got pulled over right outside the gate. He looks at me, I look at him, he throws something out the window and pulls into a parking place. The cops take him over to the curb to question him. He starts to rub his stomach, tells them he feels sick, leans down into sprinter's position, and he's gone. The cops run off after him, all leather belt, radio belly, and I'm just sitting there, alone again, in a street light puddle. It's cold in the white Bronco, the white rocks in the street, and here I am. Out the house after dark, I got a babysitter, and I'm on a first date. The tree. How me and Mike went to buy a tree at Home Depot. We picked it, paid for it, brought it to the front, waiting for a worker to wrap it and tie it on the truck. A little white lady rushes up and grabs the tree Mike is already holding. She insists that this is her tree and that we are taking it. Mike is a burly ex-con, but he tells her, no, this is our tree, to which she gets a little hysterical, orders her husband to stay with it, stomps off to find someone who works there. Her husband is a little nervous, but he does as he's told. He holds one hand on the tree Mike and his son are holding. The husband is embarrassed. We all are. I heard comedian Dave Chappelle say of being put in a cop's chokehold on the set of his own movie that he felt no surprise, no, I can't believe this is happening, only here we go. We all know this is about Mike being black, and even my whiteness doesn't break her fear. She is determined to be right, to be righteous, unfazed by the fact she is humiliating a grown man in front of his 8-year-old son. The worker comes out and puts the tree on our truck. The husband mumbles his apology, but the bitch doesn't even show her face. She never comes out to say she's sorry, to say anything. Much as I want to chase her down, to cuss her out, to spit in her face, I follow Mike's calm and we just laugh all the way home under our beautiful Christmas tree. This is an older thing. Always have a lot of stories about my dad. This one's called Dad's Room. On his wall hung ponytails still in their rubber bands. He cut them off once a year and hung them, petrified by grime like horns of some strange beast. A beaded knife case next to them, as if this buck knife was responsible for the slaughtered hair. Below the tails, a bookcase, dust on top of greasy dust, paperbacks lined up, sci-fi and beats, things he liked to dig, but I never saw him read. Only papers and magazines at the kitchen table, Penthouse, Playboy, National Geographic. The dirty mags he kept boxed up next to the bed. A dingy white radio, the side curled up, yellow melted plastic from balancing burning cigarettes, played around the clock. From my bedroom, I wondered if the Bee Gees were boy or girl, and what a douche was, and why someone would be wrapped up like one in the middle of the night. You have to be like a certain age to get that. So I have to choose what to read that. Or know the song. You came first. You came to me on Greyhound, the whole outside world falling out of your unusually red cheeks. A city-gritty kid, you went to a high school bigger than all the populations of all the towns I'd ever lived in. Laughed at our one-room schoolhouse with grades divided by blackboards, gymnasium of folded lunch tables, a yellow school bus that picked me up a mile from home. And I gave it up to you on cold-ass Mission Hill, plastic-covered windows sucked in and out, crinkly with ice. Our parents slept in the next room, white-haired, cigarette-smoking opposites, reliving an affair 30 years old. And you thought you could live here, bounce our World War II Jeep up and down the rocky ravine of driveway, fill the milk bottles up at the carriers where he ladled it out of the vat, creamy, thick as the smell of cow flops, fly buzz, creek gurgle. In winter, the Jeep filled with snow, cars parked till mud season, the outhouse walk a slow trudge to leave steaming piles on the frozen shit mound. And you thought you'd walk to a corner store like Casa Chris or Joseph's for a fat slice. But after a full day, you called in defeat from the nearest store, 20-something miles away, where dirt turned to blacktop, where no soda, chips, or candy bars could sweeten your tired feet. And you had to acknowledge that this life could not be lived without Daddy's heavy Chevys. The Blazer he pounded down interstates to city streets of Cambridge hangouts, crashing new wave artist parties in Boston lofts, shortcutting over sidewalks decades before it was hip to drive SUVs on urban landscapes, or his dooryard collection of junked Impalas, 1970s cars with so much heart and good old metal to mash around you, like the 357 in the glove box, lovingly wrapped in a soft rag, the 45s we fired right out the living room window. And you sat, clutching the pistol, terrified of the quiet and the dark, the enormity of it, us in our uncurtained windows exposed to the subtle, scuttling nightlife. A little cube of blue, fuzzy screen till the battery died, and we were left with only the kerosene lamp smoke, the piss bucket stinking in the hallway. And we lay under sleeping bags, green on the outside, red flannel innards printed with hunting scenes. Soft on young flesh, we read Penthouse Forum and replicated sex acts, withdrew in face rags kept close at hand, ran baths in the clawfoot tub, surrounded by car parts and cat shit, one clean floor towel laid out to step on, the room's filth kept at bay. And this is Where's Guadalupe? Flaco was beautiful, and sometimes I wonder if he made it out alive. Last time I saw him, he was a Marine. Quiet, smooth Flaco wearing Marine sweatpants like a white boy. I can't imagine him in the foreign violence of that life. I wonder, does he know his whole neighborhood is gone as white as a field of dandelion to seed? And where did all his brothers go? A slick creased crew of them crowding his mother's stoop on DeBose. Did he survive the wars like he survived that suicide attempt in my bathroom? That half-hearted help, a plastic Bic and a Band-Aid? Was it Sandra Osario's rejection or some other poison he carried in him when he joined us that night? A circle on the floor of our furnitureless apartment, a bottle or two past. Maybe it was still the year of 7 and 7. I don't think I'd graduated to gin and grapefruit yet. It was my first apartment, and I kept it immaculate. Everything had its place. Jobless days, I swept the wood floors and watched the fog roll over Twin Peaks. My old neighborhood is lily white now, too. Rent increased by thousands. Tech buses idle the intersection these days, but when I went into the bathroom, I saw the razor out of place in the Band-Aids. I called in to the others to conference. We were drunk, goofy drunk, and I guess Brad was going to make it with Sandra that time, leaving Josh greasy in his third-wheel army jacket, and me with Flaco, who rubbed into my back all night trying to get my pants down and put it inside me. I played dumb and stiff, begged Josh to stay to keep talking, while Flaco waved his hands at him from behind me to get lost. I wanted to tell Flaco to stop. Well, really, I wanted to ask why he'd cut himself. I wanted to tell him he was still as fine as he had been back in the day when I stole his number from the principal's office. And even the black girls were like, that's Guadalupe's fine ass, so shy and mysterious. The sheen of Tres Flores, the shine on his shoes. Was there always something so sad in his eyes? The eyes I refused to look at as I gave him my back and wordlessly let him dry hump me till day's light. You gotta admire the little burn mark. I read this at Missy's, and there was a candle in front of me, and it almost went up in flames.
Awesome. Do we have time for one more? All right.
Okay, I'm gonna read one more and we'll be done.
Yeah.
When I was 13, my first love lay beside me in a small bed on a mountaintop. A sea of wood floor stretched out around us. I told him it wasn't enough, his love, his worship. He was guilty. I was too young. He was scared, 18, not knowing where he would go. He had decisions to make and wanted me to make them. Wanted me to say, marry me, keep me, let's make a house a home. But I was already drinking whiskey, fucking his friends, the wildness racing up through my veins, through the woods, the dirt roads, the darkness. By lamplight, I cooked dinners on the wood stove, spaghetti and pork chops mostly, burning soy sauce and onions to cast iron. It was already rising up in my windpipe, and I told him I needed to be free. I was graduating 8th grade, couldn't fit into this tiny class or be his girl. Tired of shrinking, I was bigger and taller, trying to hide my sex on the yellow school bus, like I was going to drop some grown shit on the green pleather seats. Like it was hanging out my thrift store dresses, ducking behind my asymmetrical bob, one shy, thick eyebrow to the world. And I was trying to reconcile my worlds, trying to escape the captivity of them both. Weekends we rode the T to parties and movies like The Thing and Taps, hiked up Mission Hill in packs, piled into his drummer's VW bus. His band played by generator up on Dad's mountain. Mondays I'd go on back to school through orange leaf maple woods to a small schoolhouse, walk a mile uphill where I turned my back, where I felt it first, the death of what I thought was love, the questioning if it ever was. I like first kisses, the melting part. I chase the rabbit down the hole every time, but then I'm down there, down in it, the blackness. He's holding me, soaking my back in tears, salting my back, making me hard, impermeable. I turned off his faucet. I was allergic to his dick. He burned me inside. He's the one I learned to get off on. He's the one to introduce me to that cold place, the place they all end up. He was my first, and it comes back to haunt the end of sentences like punctuation. The question, if it ever was, or if this is what it looks like, the end of love. Thank you.
Is a part of a new EP that I'm working on. Google my name, Azuah. It's spelled out there if you need spelling. And you'll find me, pretty much. So. But yeah, this song's called Phil. Hope you guys like it. Walk into my world and see what I fear.